Okay, here we go. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are. Hey, it's the Rick and Dave podcast. This is Dave Stein here on my phone. Computer's giving me issues, but we're recording nonetheless. I'm joined by my co-host, Rick Fame. Rick, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Rick Boehm. I'm a real estate investor here in Bismarck. I'm a Gator. I'm also in Sub 2, and I'm a commercial lending partner with Investion. So if you're needing commercial funding, please give me or Dave a call. We'll be posting our contact information in the name group.
Oh boy. All right, we switched.
There we go.
Woo! Oh man, we're joined by Jake Day. Jake is also in the same groups Rick mentioned, but Jake, I'll kick it over to you. Just do a little intro of yourself, and then we'll just
Yeah,
start hitting you with some questions.
awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I'm Jake Day, from North Carolina. I'm in Sub 2 Gator. I'm also in Owners Club. I do creative buy and holds, underwriting, look at fix and flips, wholesale opportunities. I do a lot with talking to agents and sellers, with on market listings and pre-foreclosures. I host a Zoom and Gator for, new investors to kind of help them get on their feet, kind of connect the dots, kind of figure out what they want to do and how they're going to do it and what, best strategies and recommendations I can give to them to kind of, excel their growth. Um, yeah, yeah.
Well, Jake, let's get the obvious out of the way, right? We look at the folks in the room. Um, you appear the youngest.
Yes. Yes,
How in the world did you come to be so in depth in real estate at such a young age?
yeah, so I got very, very lucky. Um, and I was presented, an opportunity. When I was younger, my family members were like, "Well, Jake, what do you want to do? What do you want to do?" And I gave them the same answer every time. I was like, "I'm going to be a multi-millionaire. I'm going to be a millionaire. That's what I'm going to
Heck
do."
yeah.
And they're like, how are you going to do that?" I'm like, "I don't know, but all I know is that I'm going to be a millionaire. That's all I know." And so I kind of reverse engineered it. I was playing Division 3 soccer with, 8 of my high school buddies. We all got recruited to the same school. So freshman year, my roommate, he was my best friend. So I've known him since like freshman year of high school. So he was, we're super close. And he started reading the infamous book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yep.
And he was like, "Jake, dude, as soon as I finish this book, you gotta read it. Like, you just gotta read it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to. If it's about money, I would love to learn that." Because I was in college. I'm like, "Look, I'm in college now. I'm not in high school. It's not all about parties and having fun and all this kind of stuff. I'm here for school and soccer. And this is, college is to set me up for, my future career." So I was like, "Yeah, let's look at it and let's read it with an open mind." And when he finished reading it, he finished it around the end of our first semester of freshman year. And when he finished, he dropped out. So he didn't even finish a full year of
He
college.
took it to heart.
He took it to heart. Yeah. And I was like, "Dude, what? Like, why are you dropping out? Like, you can't stay a whole year? Like, what's going on with that?" And he's like, "Dude, I'm telling you, it's this book. Just read the book and get back to me, and I'll promise you, if you still don't get it, I'll explain it." Um, and needless to say, he didn't have to explain it. I read the book, flipped the switch in my head, and I was like, "Dude, this is exactly what I want. Like, this is, my path to being a millionaire as well as being my own boss. Like, I always wanted to be my own boss as well." Um, and from there, I read the book, loved it, started, digging more into it. Um, Came home to visit, and I talked to my parents. I was like, "Hey, I don't think, school's a really good idea for me." And I mean, all the way up to that point, I was never a fan of school. Like, it was our biggest argument at home was whether or not did Jake do his homework, and it was always no, he didn't want to do it. Um, and I was like, and they're like, "Well, what are you going to do?" I was like, I want to look into investing in real estate. I think because that's a great way to, put money into hard assets. I mean, real estate is never going anywhere. Somebody's always going to need a place to live no matter what.
Right.
And I can do this and I can create generational wealth and I can protect my funds and hard assets. And I gave the book to my dad and I was like, dude, just read it. And if you still want me to go to school, I'll go to school.
Hold
So
on. Let's pause there. Oh, did you call your dad dude?
yeah, I was like, it was one of those things. I'm like, dude, trust me, like, just read the book if anything. And I literally said, because I hated reading books too, and I was like, when's the last time you saw me read a book voluntarily that wasn't for a school project?
Hmm.
And he was like, yeah, that's actually a really good point. And I was like, just read the book and let me know what you think. And he read the book, and I was in class one day, and I got a text and he goes, "Holy shit." And I was like, "You finished the book, didn't you?" He's like, "Yep, this book is insane." And I mean, as I was in school after I read the book, while I'm in class, I'm on my computer, playing the cash flow game. I'm looking at other real estate methods and kind of learning how to manage money and how to make money work for you instead of you work for money. And like really basic kind of stuff like that. And so my grades were slipping because I wasn't paying attention in class. I'm like, because that the book switched my whole mentality of I don't need to go to school. I don't need a fancy paper and be all this money in debt when I can just focus on something right now that's genuinely interesting to me and it's genuinely intriguing me
Hmm.
rather than sitting in class and statistics. Like, what am I going to use statistics for? Especially, what are the odds of pulling a blue jelly bean? It's come on.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I would focus on that in class. I would read other books in class, and then came back, and me and my dad did a whole deep dive into real estate on YouTube, just like how to get started, where to start, what should I do, what's the best method as, a new real estate investor. And a lot of the people that we were watching, were like, what are they even talking about? Like, we can't follow, like, this seems way too complicated. And then we stumbled across one of Pace Morby's YouTube videos, and we watched one of his. I think it was like a sub two breakdown video, and we were like, wow, we actually know like this guy's speaking English. Like we can follow what he's saying. And then so we just kept watching more and more of his videos. Really fell in love with his content and what he does, and uh, we wanted to join sub two initially. But it was like an $8,000 like buy-in, and we are like, yeah, that's a little much for us right now. Um,
Sure.
so we joined the Gator community, and became connectors, just because we could see both sides of the deal, from a borrower's perspective, from a lender's perspective, and we can see it from, we get looks at both sides of it, and we get to do the underwriting process and really understand the dynamics of the deal. And while we were doing that, it was relatively successful. Um, and freshman year college came to a close, and I was like, I think I just want to do this. Like, I don't want to go to school. But mom wasn't on board, and we tried to get mom to read the book, but mom didn't want to read the book. So she's like, no, I want you to keep going to school just as a fail safe. And for me, that was kind of like, I was like, I don't want to do that because she's like, I just want you to have a plan B. And I was like, having a plan B is planning for plan A to fail. Like I feel like,
You
having
were
a
burning the
plan B is
boats,
good. Yeah. But like if plan A is what I want, then plan A is what I'm gonna get. So I did
or at
like
least go after.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, like you're going to school, you have to go to school, like you're way too young, just go to school, and if it takes off, then we can talk more about it. And went to like I was part-time student at like a community college, and I was like, you know what, let's make it, you take it advantage. I'll pick and choose the classes that, show that this that say that they could help me in this part of it. So like marketing and communications, I took that class to see if it would help with real estate. And there were
Sure.
some bits and pieces that did help, but wasn't anything that was like, wow, like I need to keep going to school for this. Um, then we went to Squad Up Summit 2024, and while we were there, that's when we joined Owners Club. And while we are in line at Owners Club, my dad was really nervous. He's like, dude, this is a lot of money. Like, are we sure we want to do this? And I'm like, yes. And we were like, and we kept saying to each other, I was like, burn the boats. I was like, if we're going to do this, we're going to go all the way. There's no turning back. We're burning the boats and we're going to make this work. And he was like, yeah, I agree. I think, there's a lot that we could get out of this. And I think this is very useful. And I was like, and I added on top of that, I was like, yeah, I mean, we're spending all of this money. So I'm not going to school. I'm going to sit at home every day. I'm going to do this full time because if we're spending $60,000 for the both of us to get into Owners Club, I'm going to sit in and I'm going to actually take full advantage of it. Like I don't want to have to worry about, yo, do I have a project or do I have, a presentation or homework or a test coming up? And he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I agree. I think that's really, I think that's a smart idea. Um, and came back and it was kind of just how to tell mom. I was like, look, like this is something that really intrigues me. We just spent all of this money. We're going to like I cannot go to school. Like school's not helping me. This is like a fast track, elevated mentorship. Like this is perfect, and this is what I'm going to do. And she's like, okay, I understand. Um, and then in May we joined sub two, went through the trainings, did the sub two trainings like extremely quickly. I was like this is what we wanted to do. So I'm gonna go through this, I'm gonna
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
it, and we're gonna get right into it. And yeah, so now we're just kind of we're going through having follow-up calls. I'm lucky enough to be a leader in the Gator community and help new investors. We have one door now in St. Louis that we're turning into Section 8. And then yeah, yeah, just kind of keep growing, keep grinding, and we have some stuff in the pipeline, so hopefully we can lock those up and really get moving.
Jake, one of the things that impresses me so much about you and knowing your dad, both of you, you do your homework. One of the things that I run into, because I reach out to a lot of new Gators, and people enter the Gator program or real estate in general. They come in with this enthusiasm. Oftentimes they come in with some liquidity, some cash that they're willing to spend. And the first deal that first shiny deal that looks really good, they jump on it,
Yeah,
and I have this conversation so often. I always tell them, I really encourage them that first shiny deal, even if it's a great deal, I almost encourage you to pass on it to get some experience evaluating deals
hmm
because otherwise you can really get in how you got such good patience and you like to do your homework and your due diligence. Kind of walk through that due diligence process if you could, how you would go in and evaluate a deal.
yeah, yeah. Well, I want to come back and say the homework is a huge thing, and I tell the new investors in our Gator Room all the time. I'm like, that first deal is going to be extremely appealing, especially when it says you can make 10 grand on it. You're like, this is it. Like this is where my investment starts paying me back. But it's only been 3 4 weeks, and you haven't really developed everything yet, and you're not your brain's not fully developed in understanding the whole process. So I always tell them, I'm like, make sure you're working with an OG Gator. We have like 4 requirements. It's complete Gator training, complete the safety course, vet and partner with an OG Gator on your first deal, and vet and partner with a Gator TC that knows what they're doing and they've done this before. Because right there's two extra sets of eyes that are looking over the deal that can give you insights that you didn't even know before. And that process is a lot of people don't really want to go through the process because they don't want to talk themselves out of that opportunity. I feel like they're like, oh, that number, we can kind of make it work. I just want to get my money so I can run with it. And I always tell them, I'm like, it's better to lose an opportunity for 10 grand to go into a deal and have it go horribly wrong because you wanted that 10 grand. And now that lender that you were connecting with just lost, 6 figures. Um, and so the process that what it would look like for us is as a connector, whenever, we would go out, network with a bunch of people, network with private money lenders first. So we would have a bench of private money lenders, and then we would go to fix and flippers and connect with them and say, hey, if you need funds, I have a bench of private money lenders that are ready to go right now. And I did a bunch of connecting with fix and flippers and hard money lenders that allowed second position. And whenever we would get a deal, what we did was we're doing our own underwriting as newbies, not knowing what in the world we're doing. We're doing that. We're coming up with our estimate or our whatever our analyzation of it, and then we're taking it to someone like an OG Gator or someone who's very experienced in what we're doing and they can really understand it. They would go through it, tell us where we went wrong, and then we would underwrite it again to see how he got that, and just so we get that muscle memory and we can do it ourselves, and we're hands-on underwriting and we can understand it better. And so, like, of course, the first few deals are trash. We're like, this is not good at all.
No, hold on. Is it the deal is trash, or you guys like you guys felt like your experience and your underwriting was trash?
Both.
Okay.
Both, because we would underwrite deals and like, oh yeah, this looks great. Like we're just doing like rough numbers. Like we're just subtracting rehab we're adding purchase, rehab, and subtracting that from ARV. And we're like, oh, there's a great margin here. Like let's do it. But of course, we're not taking into account, realtor fees, private money, lender fees,
Cost of
closing
money.
costs,
Yep.
insurance and all that kind of stuff. And we're not taking into account, what if the deal goes over? How is this going to affect the numbers here? What if the rehab needs more? Like, is that built into it? Like, what happens if more money for rehab is needed?
Jake,
And
can, can you kind of walk us through the A to B to C to D of your underwriting process in case somebody has maybe is interested in taking the underwriting course, or maybe has, is looking at this, kind of give them an overview of step by step how you do it.
yeah. So deal comes in. First thing we're doing is we're making sure the property's under contract. So if the property's not under contract, it's not even a deal yet. As if it's once we verify it's under contract, we get the PSA, double check that, and then we go into comping. We're finding, what's an accurate ARV. We're taking the fix and flippers ARV estimate and their comps, and we're not taking that for their word. We're taking that as a reference point, and then we're doing our own comps and our own ARV estimation. Is that the word? And
Estimate.
estimate, that's the word. Gosh, I'm trying to speak big words here. It's not
Too
working.
many things. And just point of clarification, ARV after repair value,
Yes.
comps would be comparable sales.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. Continue.
And we would go through with that, and we're making sure, our comps are properties that are related to the subject property. So the subject property is the one that's going under the rehab, and that's the actual project. And of course, comps have to, be same, have to be the same story, relatively same square footage, relatively same bed and bath count. If they have like an extra bed or an extra bath, add 10,000 or subtract 10,000, whatever it is. And then once we get our comp, once we get that number of the estimated or the ARV, we're plugging that into a spreadsheet, and we're going through, the what's the purchase price, what's the estimated rehab cost, and whenever we get that rehab cost, we're not taking that for the rehabs where we're like, okay, we need a SOW, which is a scope of work. What needs to be fixed and how much is it going to cost to fix it. And you can get that from, so like a fix and flipper, when they hire a contractor, they'll give those estimates to the fix and flipper. So we'll get that. So we have purchase, uh, rehab budget, ARV, and then lastly is how long are funds needed for? Like how long is your project? Is it 4 months? Is it 6 months? Is it 8 months? Because that's huge in calculating, what's the payout to the private money lender? Like, is that gonna, if we go longer, if we add like an extra 2, 3 months of buffer, is that going to throw off our margins to where the private money lender is making more money and it's not, now we're kind of in the red here.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we're plugging it in. We'll go to Privy, we'll pull the annual property taxes, we'll plug that into it. We'll plug in our connector fee. After that, what it would look like is if we think it's good, the deal checks all of our boxes. We put that deal into like a deal project, presentation, and we'll send it to our private money lenders and let them underwrite it. And if they underwrite it and they like it, what we'll do is we'll get both borrower and lender to sign a non-circumvention agreement saying that, when they meet, they're not just going to cut me out of the deal and then they just work together. And once we get that signed, then we get, borrower and lender on the phone, and that's where, just talking about, each other, getting to know each other, kind of background experience, what they intend to do with what the borrower intends to do with the property, his background and all that kind of stuff. And if, final negotiations are needed, that'll happen there. After that call, if they're still on the same page and they want to follow through with it, then we'll get a TC to come in and start, writing up the JV agreement. We'll fill out the JV agreement, dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure everything's perfect. And then from there, on the closing date, private money lender will wire funds to title, and then title will wire the funds to borrower. We'll get our connector fee, at closing. And then this is one thing I always say to my Zoom as well, is if you're wanting to be a connector, as soon as you get paid out at closing, your job's not done. Like you're still in that deal. You still have responsibilities and obligations until that property is sold. Not when it goes under contract, but when it's sold, when everything's done. That's when you're done. And so that's kind of what the process would look like. And of course, there's you have to verify title. You have to look over HUDs of the borrower, past projects that they've done. And you have to look at those projects, make sure that those have actually happened and he's not putting addresses and random numbers on there.
Well, I think thank you. That's super helpful. I think a point of confusion for a lot of new people in real estate is the difference between comping and underwriting, because they both arrive at a value, but they're very different. And you did a really good job as far as what goes into the underwriting.
What are some of the big things you mentioned going over time, rehab going over budget? Like, what would you say off the top of your head, top 5 things or so that are the red flags or the hurdles that you've had to overcome in some of your deals?
Yeah, it's kind of just when you really get good at the underwriting and the connector process, you can really just see the rough numbers and know whether or not the deal has potential or it doesn't have potential. Like if somebody says, "Oh, we need, 120 grand for rehab, but we're going to get it done in 4 months." It's like, how do you intend to do 120 grand worth of rehab in 4 months?
Yeah.
And Pace says a good rule of thumb is it's $1,000 a day for rehab.
Okay.
So
That's good.
that 4 months is what? That's 90 days and it's 120. So we're looking at a 120-day process. So now that's 6 months. And so that's one thing that we always look for is like if they have a short rehab time, but they have a large rehab budget, that sets off a red flag. Another red flag is whenever I would kind of talk to people who are interested in connectors, they would be like, "Well, should I go do a title search? Should I like what documents do I need to go pull?" And I'll tell them none.
Rick, are you still there?
I'm still here. Did we lose them?
We might have. That's a great photo though.
He was like, "Yeah, this property is under contract. It's a new development deal, and there's huge margins to do this deal, and I would have made a lot of money." But I was like, "Hey, can you send me over your HUD, scope of work, PSA, all these needed documents?" He's like, "Well, I don't really want to do that because that could jeopardize the deal." And I'm like, "That doesn't make sense. Like that's a little fishy." And he was like, "Yeah, I don't really want to hand out those documents until we have a lender lined up and a JV agreement signed." And I was like, "Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not the right guy for you. I just don't feel comfortable moving forward with this one. And turns out that dude was a scam. Um, so it's just one of those things. It's like a lot of people see. I always try to tell people, don't see a deal for the money that you could get out of it. See it for the protecting your lender's money as much as you can. Because how are you going to feel if you're telling the lender, yo, this is great. Like, I love this deal. Like, we could do so much with this. And they're investing all of this money and then they lose it. Like, I feel like
Right.
for me, I'm like, I would have such a guilty consciousness that, like, dude, like, I messed that up. I messed that one up bad just because I wanted to get my part of it out. And of course, deals are going to go bad, but it's trying to lower as much risk as you can. But yeah, those are kind of the two main things that kind of set red flags off immediately.
And to follow up on your $1,000 a day, um, you know, kind of bulb figure. One of the things that I always use when I'm doing some underwriting is oftentimes I see people, let's say they're borrowing 60,000, and then they'll want it for, 6 months. And you walk them, and I always try to reverse engineer that.
Hmm.
Why do you need it for the 6 months?
Yeah.
Because if you figure $1,000 a day, that's 60 days. And then you can
Hmm.
figure in some, maybe some weather days, maybe some holidays, give
Hmm.
them some kind of grace period. But it's a really good way of keeping the person on time and know that they're using their money appropriately and you're going to get your money back in a timely manner.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, and if they're like, oh, we need 60 grand and it's going to take us 60 days. I completely agree. Like, well, something's going to go wrong. If there's a guarantee about anything while you're doing that project, you're going to come across something that you did not expect and you did not account for. Um, so I always tell them like, yeah, it could take 60 days to do the rehab, but then we also have to keep in mind like you have to get an agent, you have to list the agent, you have to hire the agent, they have to list it, and then you have to wait for somebody to come in and buy it. Not to mention the closing process is a month long if you're selling it, on the market. Because if a buyer comes in and they're buying it traditionally, now they have to go through a whole bank. They have to get verified. They have to get pre-approved, and they have to get, a deeper review on their credit score, and then they have to be approved again for the second time. And then they have to get the funds and then go through that process of closing escrow. So that whole timeline takes like about a month and a half to go through. Um, so I always make sure like, is that accounted for?
Are you
And
doing mainly single family or are you doing some multifamily?
Mainly single family. But we add in there up to like quadplexes. So we haven't had any deals like that before. Um, I mean, we've had looks at them, but we only focus on those. I mean, as a connector, like what I do now is single family up to quadplexes. As a connector, we were doing deals up to there was one deal that we needed. It was a new construction luxury uh what is it? A like condo complex. And we got really close to that one, but then the lender was, in and out, taking a sweet time and then it got funded. So we lost that one. But as a connector, as long as you're understanding of how to underwrite, and especially with it being multifamily, that's a whole different underwriting process. It's entirely different from a fix and flip. So I brought in one of our another community member, Steve, and he's very good at underwriting multifamily deals. And Rick, you probably saw when we were in Deal Connectors, I had him come on for an underwriting Zoom, and he went through it.
Yep.
So I gave it to him, and I was like, "Here, look at this. What are you seeing? Is this do the numbers from what you see? Could this work out?" He's like, "Yeah, this looks great. I mean, the margins are there. They even have a lot of buffer on their margins for if something goes wrong." Um, and that's one thing I really try to stress is if you're not entirely sure, just ask for help. Just especially with the community that we're in, just ask for help. Somebody's gonna love to, you know, give their insight and help you out because that just shows that they're credible and that helps their image. Every time I've asked somebody for help, even if I think like, dude, this is such like, why am I like, I feel like I should know this is a dumb question, and I'll ask it, and they're like, dude, no worries, man. Like, of course I'm here to help. Like, all then. people are super supportive in our community. So I'm like, dude, don't be prideful, don't be scared. Just if you have a question, ask the question.
So Jake,
Especially because it comes back to, oh, I'm sorry, Rick.
no,
It
go
comes
ahead.
back, it comes back to what you mentioned earlier. You're there to protect. So your role as a connector, just for the audience, is you are essentially finding borrowers and lenders and being a matchmaker.
Exactly.
Um, but you're the ones going out to lenders saying, "Hey, I have a real estate investment deal. Your money would be invested tied to the real estate, right? So you have first or second lien, meaning which position is debt paid off if something goes bad.
Hmm.
But you're just there like, this is a deal. Here are all the risk mitigation that we've taken to ensure that you get your return on investment.
Hmm.
Because the easier thing is just, hey, go put it in the stock market, get your return, but you have the opportunity to earn bigger returns in a shorter period. It's just a little riskier, but there's some safety precautions that you guys put into place.
Of course,
But
of course.
whether you do one deal or 100 deals, sometimes
Hmm.
it's the tip of your nose. It's just too close for you to see like the angle that you need to see. So
Hmm.
asking for that outside perspective is huge.
Absolutely. And even as a connector, kind of ways to grow, your networking list with private money lenders. Whenever I would connect with the lender, they're like, okay, like how do I know if my money's secured? Or, are you going to send me every deal you get, or are you just going to send me, a few deals? I'm like, the only deals you're going to see from me are deals that I've already previously underwritten and they check my boxes and in my eyes, it's a good deal. However, I want you to do your own due diligence because you might see something that I don't see. And that kind
Mm,
of just shows like, oh, okay, so Jake's going out of his way to make sure that this deal looks good to him before he sends it to me. Like I've talked to a lot of connectors, and I always like tell the new connectors that ask me questions, I'm like, if you get a deal, don't immediately send it to, your lenders. Because if you're getting a deal and you're not even looking at it and you're just sending it hoping that, it's good and the lender will find it, you'll underwrite it and say it's good, you're going to send them a lot of cruddy deals and then they're going to get a bad taste in their mouth like, oh, yep, here comes Jake. He's sending me another deal. Let me guess, it's going to be bad when it could be really good. Whereas you can kind of filter that out and only send them the higher quality deals and like, oh, Jake sent me another deal. Let's check it out. Like, because I know he's looked at it
mhm.
and he likes it. So I know that it's good from him and he's not just passing it on to me. And that's helped a lot. They're like, I've gotten feedback, like I appreciate it. Because a lot of lenders are, they're still working full time or they're doing other things and they just have the capital to fund or to lend
Right.
out. And they don't want to take the time of going through all of these deals that you're sending them if majority of them are cruddy.
Yep.
So that just kind of expedites the process. And whenever they get that deal sent over, like, oh, okay, here's another deal. Let's really take a look at it this time.
What advice do you have for new people, new young people in real estate?
Yeah, yeah. First is find somebody that is a lot more experienced than you are. And not just that, they're experienced in doing something that you want to do. Like don't if you're trying to be a connector, don't like idolize Pace Morby and try to follow him because Pace is not a connector. Pace is a buy and holder and he's doing a lot of high level stuff. Do something that do follow somebody and partner with them that's doing what you're doing right now and they're doing it successfully and efficiently. Um,
Yeah, that's huge.
yeah, that's a big one for me because I did that and I was like, I would talk to them and I would ask these silly questions that I thought I had. Um, and they're like, yeah, that's a great question. And they would answer the question and then they would add some more on top of it. I'm like, oh, I didn't even like know that wasn't even in my thought process. I never would have counted for that. And another advice piece I would give is as a new investor, whether you want to be a connector or you want to be a wholesaler, fix whatever you want to do, stick with it. Pick something that catches your eye, that you're like, oh, that looks really interesting. I would like to do that. And whatever avatar you pick, an avatar is, whatever investing strategy you choose, stick with it for minimum 90 days because that allows you to get fully set up your systems, set up your processes, give you time to thoroughly network, create those connections, and start trying out the deal flow. And once you have all that set up, then you can start trying it, and you have time to fail and fix and fail and fix and fail and fix. And then at that 90-day, 100-day period, if you're like, this is really not going anywhere, then then you can I would say that you're able to move on to another investment strategy. But a lot of people want to just try something, and if they don't get returns within a month, they're like, okay, I'm going to try something else. And then that doesn't work in the first month. They're like, oh, I'm going to try something else. And then now you've done three different strategies for 3 months and you've gotten nowhere. But if you stick with one strategy for those 3 months, now you're really picking up pace, and you're really set in, you're really have a foundation set, and then now you can really start building on it rather than just jumping into something and trying to make it work really, really quickly.
What's been
Right.
your most effective method of networking? Is it in-person meetups? Is it Facebook outreach? Is it your Zooms?
Mm-hmm.
What's worked most effectively for you?
In-person meetups, and I'll say that till the day I die. And the reason I say that is because you can tell a lot of things about people if they're genuine or not just based off of their body language. I mean, and like studies have shown that 90% of communication is done through body language.
Nonverbal. Yeah.
Yeah, nonverbal, like people's demeanor and all that stuff. So if I'm not saying that, connecting with somebody and networking with somebody, online on Facebook, Zooms is a bad thing, but having that face-to-face connection shows you that you're for real. I would tell, like, there's this one time this dude was worried. He's like, dude, you're a little young. How can I trust you? And I told him, I was like, dude, I'm standing right here in front of you. Like, we're at a meetup. Like, this is what I do. I can show you everything that I do, but I'm right here in front of your face telling you that. And he was a lender. I was like, I'm telling you that whatever deal you get from me, I've already gone over it. It checks my boxes. I think it's a good deal, and that's why I'm sending it to you. I'm not going to waste your time. And he was like, yeah, that's really encouraging. That helps me a lot. Helps me a lot to trust you. Um, and it just allows you to, become, closer as people, as friends. I always tell people, when you're networking, don't just network for the business side of things. Network for to find like a new friend. Like, find it's person before business. So get to know the
Hmm.
person and see where you guys can, connect and do business together. Because you're now, if you do business together, you're not doing business with just some random person you met up with. It's like, oh, look, I'm doing business with Dave. I'm doing business with Rick. Like, those are my people, and we're friends, and now we get to make money together. That's like the best part about it. Um, so I would say, in-person meetups is the best way. And especially, like, I go to the North Carolina Real Estate Association meetups, and while I'm there networking, they have, you know, uh, they're doing like a whole presentation on a topic. So now I'm learning and I'm networking at the same time, rather than just sitting on my butt, on a computer texting people and all this stuff. Say, hey, let's do this, let's do that. Now, of course, if they're out of the state, uh, I would go, let's get on a Zoom or a FaceTime, so at least we can have that face to face.
Yeah.
So if I had to rank it, it would be number one, in person; two, FaceTime or Zoom, just because you see that face to face and you can talk to each other, because you can still get body language through, seeing each other over a screen. Third is phone calls. Fourth is, texting, because phone calls and texting, you don't really know who's behind that, or who's behind the number, or who's behind the screen.
Sure.
But yeah, that's how I would rank it.
All right. Last thing, Jake. What is your big, as we're nearing the end of the year, we're getting ready for 25. What's your big goal for 2025?
My big goal for 2025 is to really ramp up our wholesaling and our fix and flip strategies. Um, just because, buy and hold is a great thing, and that's forever money, and that's how you build generational wealth. Um, but at the same time, like, we need today money. Like, we want to invest in other things, and we want to be lenders as well, but we need cash to do that.
Hmm.
So we want to do fix and flips. That's, we can get a lot higher returns. We can get, some tomorrow money with fix and flips, and then with wholesale we can get, more today money. So I want to, yeah, that's our big goal, is
Fantastic.
to ramp those two topics up.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so
Well,
much,
gent,
Jake. You were
thanks, Jake.
awesome today. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. I love jumping on and talking with you guys.
And I see we've got your QR code up here on your screen, but if for whatever reason the QR code they're not able to, how else can they get a hold of you? How else can they find you?
Yeah, yeah. If you follow me on Instagram at jake.day19, or you can just give me a call or a text message. My phone number is 919-805-1687.
Awesome, awesome.
Fantastic. For me, my stuff is also up here, but at Dave Stein 29 on Instagram. Rick,
Mine's also on the screen. I look forward to speaking with you. And until we meet again, thanks so much.
Are you
always a
guys going to
pleasure.
squat up?
I think
Undecided.
I
I'm
got you.
I'm undecided, but I know that this last one was legit off the hook, right? So
Mm-hmm.
definitely a target to that might be my big 2025 goal.
Awesome. Awesome.
Get up, squat up.
Oh yeah. All
All
right.
right, guys.
Thank you
Take
guys. I
care.
appreciate
You
it.
bet.